Welcome, friends, to the Homeschool Journal today. We are on location. We are not in the studio, as I said before. We are in a real, everyday used classroom at Highlands Latin School in Louisville, Kentucky, our Memoria Press model school. And I have here with me today two dear women and friends, Jessica Watson and Amy Mangione, who are long-term teachers for our model school. And so they're going to walk us through today. We're going to talk all about what we think could be classroom tips for the homeschooler.
Welcome to the Homeschool Journal, a show that unpacks the joys and journeys of the classical homeschool family. Here's your host, Carrie McGraw.
So let's first introduce you to Jessica for just a minute. Jessica hails from Massachusetts.
Yes.
That's right. And so in Massachusetts, you had your son and you looked at public school and Christian school options for him. As you looked at that and that wasn't quite what you wanted, you started doing some research, found classical schooling, and you started homeschooling with some Memoria Press material at that time, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I was using their Latin and their literature.
Oh, wonderful. And then she moved to Louisville and lo and behold, enrolled her son and herself as a teacher.
Yes.
Here at Highlands Latin School. Yay. And we have been benefiting ever since. But tell everybody how long you have taught here.
Sure. So I began in 2011. So it's been 11 years. And I taught third grade for 7 years, and this is my fourth year teaching sixth grade. Mm-hmm. And that was our principal, Mr. Wheatley's idea, not mine, to move to what would be considered the middle school years. But I have thoroughly enjoyed both of those grades, and they're the bookends of our grammar school.
They are the bookends. I love how you put that.
So I've learned really, how we begin the grammar school years and what's expected of students, and then how we prepare them for those upper school years.
And so Amy, my friend Amy here, she hails from Ohio.
I do.
And similarly, was brought here when her oldest son, AJ, was in kindergarten.
Starting kindergarten.
That's right. He was starting kindergarten. And while you and your husband, Andy, looked for parochial school options, it was recommended that you
check out Highlands.
Highlands.
Yeah. And we've been here ever since.
That's right. Ever since. And her son just recently graduated in 2021. And Drew graduated in 2018.
Yes.
Oh, I got it right.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, you know what? To be honest, I have to tell everybody, I have had the blessing of enjoying their sons in the lives of my children. So that has been another blessing.
Oh,
Amy
yes. All of our children were in the same house, weren't they?
Yeah,
that's right.
They
in our upper school house system.
House of St. Patrick. There we go. Okay. And then Amy has another son, Danny, who is still here.
He's a junior.
He's a junior at Highlands Latin School. So you really have been here as a parent for a long time. But now you started actually.
I started out as volunteer coordinator.
That's right.
Yes. So just helping out organized parents to help out in the classroom or wherever they needed it. So, and that forayed into junior kindergarten, helping out in that classroom 2 mornings a week. It was a nice, easy transition. And then I started to lead junior kindergarten, and then Mr. Wheatley suggested I teach sixth grade.
That's a common theme here.
Yeah, so for the fraction practice that I could give sixth graders. So I jumped up to sixth grade, and then I did a year with that where I was blessed to have my son AJ in the class. So that was wonderful. And then I nestled down into fourth grade, and that's where I've been ever since. So that's where I am now.
Awesome. So this is why everybody, I have asked Jessica and Amy here, not only do they have lots of experience as teachers, they have lots of experience as parents, but they also have a lot of experience in the grammar school years. And I love how you talk about those bookends of grammar school. So now that you all know who they are and what they do, we're going to get into classroom tips for the homeschooler. Now, you might think, why? Why that? Well, Memoria Press and Highlands Latin School are one big package. And ladies, do you all know that Highlands Latin School, being the model school for Memoria Press, do you all know you're the guinea pigs?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, you do.
Oh, yes. We are quite aware we are guinea pigs.
And so Memoria Press is really unique in that everything that we write and develop for the homeschool user is classroom tested first. And here they are right here. And that is really a unique thing that we can say about our curriculum. Right. And so when Memoria Press does this and tests in the classroom, we're not just testing the material, we're testing how it can be taught. Mm-hmm. And because we don't want to just throw curriculum out there at a family, we also want to guide a family and a parent into how to develop, like I said earlier, how to develop a student. Mm-hmm. And so, it's really an entire package. Mm-hmm. So I think that there are some things that we can glean from the classroom experience that homeschoolers can consider to say, maybe that's something I can use at home. So we're going to do this in 3 ways. We're going to do it in 3 areas, okay? So the first area we're going to talk about is teacher planning. I know that you all spend a lot of time planning, and our homeschoolers do too. And so maybe there's some tips that you guys have for homeschool teachers in planning. The second area we're going to cover is the physical space. Mm-hmm. Here today, we're sitting in a physical classroom. That's not what happens in a homeschooler's home typically, right? But I think that there are some things about our physical space that are really important for homeschoolers. And the third thing is student behaviors and actions and expectations. Mm-hmm. So let's start with teacher planning. What do you all do to prepare your week, your day, your month, that a homeschooler can do as well? Jessica, you want to start?
Sure. I think at the beginning of the year, it's really important just to get a large scope and sequence, whether you're a classroom teacher or a homeschool mom, by looking at by either writing a syllabus for each subject or, being given one, because we do provide those a lot of times for our homeschooling parents, and just getting an idea of the big picture. Where is the student starting? And what are you reviewing at the beginning of the year? And what's the goal? What is the end? What is the end? What are you hoping to accomplish in this entire year? So having a syllabus that keeps you on track and it just helps you see the big picture. And then just weekly lesson planning, writing out a lesson plan for the week, looking through that lesson plan. I think sometimes we think we have to go and through every subject and look at every book for the entire year. But really, if we can just stay a lesson or 2 ahead of the students, then we'll be in great shape. And that won't be so overwhelming for us. So just looking a week ahead and going through those books and seeing what the student's going to be learning and mapping that out, mapping out very specific things. How are you going to review? What are you going to recite? What assignments, what seat work assignments will you be giving them? What will be the examples you use as you instruct? So writing or looking at a syllabus and then having lesson planning, looking through your books, and just getting your week in order, having the books in order, having, as a teacher, having copies made, and just being organized so that the week can go as smoothly as possible. Of course, there'll be interruptions, but we want to have a smooth flow to our days. And so doing all the prep work that you can a week ahead of time, at least, in order for that to happen.
Oh, I think that's so important. And, one of the things that Memoria Press does provide for its homeschoolers is a curriculum manual for each grade, right? And so really the lesson plans are there. They're funny. They even have little checkboxes for people like me.
Which is wonderful.
That have to checkbox. And I don't just checkbox, like I checkbox in a red pen.
Yes, it's very clear. You did it.
Exactly. So,
but it's good. We want to have order and purpose.
Absolutely. But what you say about stay a week ahead, know what is coming for your student in that week, because even though our curriculum is meant to be open and go, you kind of have to know what you're opening first, right?
And things connect, right? So subjects build on top of each other. And so, I'm teaching about ratios today, but that's because I'm teaching about proportions tomorrow in math. And so I need to know that there's a connection between these 2 math lessons, and I'm aware of that as I'm teaching.
Good. Amy, any thoughts on teacher planning and how to tackle?
I would agree with Jessica about looking at your whole year first and seeing where you want to start and where you want to end up. But also looking at, there's a flow to Memoria Press lesson plans. It's usually like 5 lessons, a review, and a test. So get into that flow and maybe plan, like, we're going to do these 5 weeks of lessons. We're going to do our review. We're going to do our test week. And then maybe we take a break week and then, jump back into it. I mean, just how that fits with your schedule and your planning. I always say over-prepare, because my school days that I have planned and I have everything ready to go much smoother than the days where I feel like I am grabbing everything and doing things at the last minute, or something's been changed on me. And the students feed off of that too. I mean, and so will your child. They will pick that up.
Your child will pick that up and run with it.
Yeah. Schedules are so important because, I mean, we start out our year with a nice schedule and we follow it and we're good. And then some things happen like Christmas cantatas or plays, and our schedule gets wonky, and the kids are like, what's happening next? What are we doing next? What do I need to plan for? And it really throws off all of our games because they don't know what to expect. And, you know, me as a teacher, I'm like, okay, we got to go do this now. We got to go do that now. And I think just planning those days would be very important.
Yes.
Well, and then, you know, for a homeschooler, it's fitting in all the activities, you know, where it all where you got to run one kid and then be schooling on the side with the next. Yes, I spent many a day or an hour, a violin lesson in a car with one kid while the other one was, you know, in lesson, still, you know, staying productive and getting things done. And if I hadn't mapped out the week and sometimes the days, you know, then I wouldn't have been able to pack up right and go and be ready to stay productive. Right. But talk to me about setting goals for our students, you know, and when you are teaching 6th grade, 4th grade, you know, what level of responsibility in that planning process do you see the students might have? Amy, what do you think?
I think that would depend on your child too. And I would also be flexible. I mean, you might have the best plan, but if they're struggling with something, you just might have to take that extra day. Or if they are so fascinated by a certain subject, you know, astronomy or whatever, and they want to spend extra time on that, I would feed into that too.
I love it.
I mean, I think that flexibility with the homeschooler is
that's the beauty
perfect.
of homeschooling.
I mean, we have to just keep muscling on. We just have to keep moving. But I think with homeschooling, you can take that extra time and say, you know what? Yeah, let's really, you know, go to the library and get books out, or, you know, be flexible with that because you certainly have the time to do so.
Beautiful.
But with the goals, I would just look at the curriculum, see where where your end of the year is going to end up and how that would look, and then kind of work backwards.
Do you ever have like a list of something for the students to see, like either for the day or for the week? Like, this is what we're going to get done, and bring them in on, you know, how do you do that?
I know for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade at our school, we have weekly happenings where a newsletter is sent home to the students, and sort of it maps out the week and what they'll be learning in each subject, any assessments that are coming up. In 6th grade, we don't do that as much because we're trying to prepare them for being good students and upper school students where they're going to take more ownership, more responsibility. So we will give them a test calendar a month ahead of time, at least for part of the year. And then we expect them to just be listening well when we are mentioning when the assessments are coming up and marking it down in their planner. But I think homeschoolers could use a planner. I think that would actually be a great way of...
Depending upon the age.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
Like
but starting in 3rd grade, you know, starting in those grammar school years, teaching them to take a little bit of personal responsibility for their learning, for their schooling, and what's assignments are due and when assessments are coming up. That would... I know Memoria Press sells those, so they're available. We sell personalized agendas.
So I love that you talk about the happenings. I had totally forgotten. That's what, because I had some kids in those ages.
Right. They get those every week.
I had totally forgotten about those, you know. I've been out of those years for so long, but that's a really good concept in some way to let your student know at home, here's what we're going to accomplish, you know, this week. Right?
It gets them excited and has them looking forward to what they're going to be learning. But it also, I think, gives them a sense of ownership over their work and over their studies.
As a parent, I mean, that was helpful to stick on the refrigerator.
Absolutely.
So that way, you know, if I don't have any homework tonight, it's like, well, you have a test tomorrow, you know.
You need to study.
What you have coming up that you could, you know, plan for. So.
And we can get these kids in on the checkboxes too.
Absolutely.
I mean, they can check a checkbox.
That's right.
Right.
So, that's right.
I know some parents that I've spoken with that have maybe a 5th or a 6th grader kind of, they may use the curriculum manual, let the students go through that curriculum manual and check things off after they have taught the lesson.
Yes, that's
but
great.
It's there, you know, so that may not yet have a planner, but they're using that curriculum manual in that way for that older student. You know, you're kind of graduating into
Exactly.
that. You know,
Right. It's a process. It's a gradual process, incremental.
I have to say for my 3rd and 4th graders, I always had a whiteboard. Oh, we're getting into physical space now. Wait a second.
Did we just transition?
Physical space. Okay.
That's
so
a good
maybe
transition.
that's a good transition.
It is
I didn't mean to do that, but okay. Well, then let's talk about
how do you make that happen?
I'll hold my whiteboard comment and talk about, our classroom experience in a brick and mortar has some advantages in that everybody's in a desk. They're all facing in one direction, or at least at this school, they are, right? There's purpose in that.
Absolutely.
There's purpose in that. To have that singular focus. Well, classrooms at home can't really do that. I mean, honestly, half the time we were in a dining room. And we were facing each other, or I was right between 2 kids and literally pointing to where they needed to be on the page. So let's talk about the physical space of our classroom here specifically, because I think our Highlands Latin school classrooms are kind of unique today.
They are.
Really?
Yes.
So what do you think about the physical space here, Jessica, that can be used at home?
Well, so not to be philosophical, I know we're trying to be practical.
Go right ahead.
But we're classical educators. We're not progressive educators. And so we don't have child-centered classrooms. We have teacher-directed classrooms. And our goal with our students is to help them conform to what's true and good and beautiful. So we're doing that very intentionally by not having classrooms that are entertaining or, with a lot of cartoonish decor or kitschy decor. We want it to be uncluttered and simple. We only put up what's useful and what's beautiful on our walls, very intentionally, so the students can focus on learning. And that's our priority. And everything we're doing is kind of geared toward that goal. So
I love how you said uncluttered. I can't say that my dining room was too uncluttered.
It is different with the homeschool.
It is different with the
sure.
homeschool, but it is something to consider in the space that your child is in. We want their minds and their hearts uncluttered, right? And so that space should help and reflect that and guide that as well. And so, I did do bulletin boards. We had a bulletin board for, morning openings and exercises and things like that. We had whiteboards that we worked on actively. We had whiteboards that, like I started talking about, we used for what was the day's plan before a child was using a planner, and I would write out what their day's assignments were, and it was their responsibility to, with a different color marker, check it off. But the space did try to remain uncluttered, especially the space at which the table at which we were working.
Right.
Like I did talk about the pile of books, but there
was order to the books.
There was
though,
order.
right?
There was definitely order and purpose to the books. What do you think, Amy, about the space of a classroom that can influence a homeschool classroom?
Well, I think, having the focus of the child, so making sure you are at a dining room table or a kitchen table or a kitchen counter, the living room couch or the family room couch is probably not the best spot to homeschool.
I love that for like special reading time.
Yes,
that's okay.
Yes, or, or on the floor. I mean, I know, floor exercise, but I think sitting so they can have the, the proper, pencil grips and things like that. Their feet need to be able to touch the ground, those type of things, those little things that will make a big difference in the long run. But also having everything you need like right there so that when they go to, have your pencils, have your highlighters, have everything at the ready. So that way it's not that, I need to go take 5 minutes and go search for my pen, or I need to go
I left the scissors upstairs.
Yeah. So having like a little caddy or something that just has your supplies for the day in it. I don't think it has to look like a classroom.
Right.
I think it needs to look like your dining room because you are homeschooling, but having the supplies and what's needed at the ready.
I so appreciate you saying that. Thank you so much.
But it's a designated space for a specific purpose, and mom has determined that space and that purpose. It's not the child every day saying,
I want to go outside this day.
Or I want to go, on my bed and, kind of sprawl out to study. It's mom is directing it. And just like classroom teachers, we think through at the beginning of the year, everything, where we're going to store supplies, how we're going to have students organize their desk, and how we're going to organize our space. I think that's important for homeschooling parents too, to just think that through. How am I going to organize my space? Even if it is just the kitchen table, how am I still going to organize that? Like Amy was saying with the caddy or whatever, so that supplies are accessible and available when needed.
So smart. And, we had fun with that because my kids, when they were homeschooling, for most of the years that I homeschooled, there was always somebody at Highlands Latin School. So Highlands Latin School would send home a supply list, and we had to go shopping. Well, the homeschoolers needed a supply list too, and we went shopping for them too.
Yes.
And they had their own bins where everything had to be the extra pencils, the extra dry erase markers, the erasers for the dry erase board, the scissors, whatever it was at whatever age, glue, colored pencils. They had their own little bin that they could go and retrieve and bring to the table, to the school day. But you're right. I mean, having that ready to go, but not just their stuff, like you said, my stuff too.
Right.
That was just, I had my own caddy. Because mom had to have plenty of red pens.
Yes. It's Mrs. Cheryl, though, used to always say, we want to be jealous guardians of our time. And that goes for the classroom as well as the homeschooling parent, is
beautiful.
You can utilize all that wonderful time so well when you have order and when you are organized, but time gets wasted so easily when you're not.
That's right. And the same thing about, like you said earlier, the purpose, the focus, how, Amy, you said something a minute ago that I thought of, and when you talked about sitting for school, and the importance of where we are and what we're doing, like you said too, as far as we have something that is good, true, and beautiful, a purpose to the work that we have in front of us, right? So let's give it that respect, right, in how we approach the school day. Now, I'm not saying, hold on, that it is not worthy to go out in a hammock in the summertime and, read, Charlotte's Web for a little while together and then go back in and do, the work together, or take that enrichment time and be on the couch snuggling with multiple, students, multiple kiddos, because that's usually the scenario.
Oh, those are my favorite memories. My best memories of homeschooling are reading on the couch. The ones I treasure the most. So absolutely.
With a nice warm blanket, absolutely. And so it's not that those things don't happen, or there were, beautiful days when it was just so beautiful. Yeah. We have obviously most people do, like a table outside on the deck, under an umbrella, and we may have moved to that table to get things done, but we were still, at a very purposeful place to sit together and get work done and stay, rather focused, I think.
And that was the exception rather than the norm.
That was the exception.
That's the point.
And that was really kind of a reward.
Right. If you can get this done, then we can go outside and do this. So,
And then if you really get it all done, we can really go outside.
Then we can be done with our school day.
Really go outside and play.
But you're so right as far as, and I think that was such an important point, that the content we're setting before our students is worth their time, worth their attention, worth their effort. And that's why all these practices need to be so thought through, because it is about the content that we are presenting to them. We do think it's the true, the good, and the beautiful. And it's worthy of all their effort, all their attention.
That's right. So talking about attention and respect, we're going to segue there we go into our third, which is the student behaviors and actions. And I'm not trying to reach into a homeschooler's home and go, well, your student should act like this. That's not it at all. But Memoria Press is unique in that there are certain things that we do in our curriculum that require some different postures, I think, different ways to physically stand maybe and attack the material and use the material. But there are also, we've talked about developing respect for your school day, right? So let's talk about some of the things students' behaviors, actions, postures, things like that I think are also important to bring to a school day. Jessica, you have any insight on that?
Oh, so many things. Where to get started? Well, I do think that, having clear expectations are important that you set forth, whether it's in a classroom or a homeschool situation. And that's, again, teacher directed or mom directed. And I do think having a quiet atmosphere, I guess I can focus on that one. Having a quiet atmosphere is the most conducive for students to be able to concentrate on the content before them. And so even in a homeschool situation, I think that can be implemented where when it's time to do work, we're quiet. We're not chatting about things that have nothing to do, have no
Phones
connection.
are put away.
Yes, exactly. Right.
TV's
no
off.
technology. Right.
TV's off.
And we're not chatting about things, siblings aren't chatting about things that are unrelated to the content before them. So we're just like we try to stop the stories that want to happen all the time in our classroom that are really unconnected to what we're learning, or we try to minimize as many interruptions and distractions as possible. And I think that homeschoolers can do that as well.
I think there's a balance in that, because you are, our homeschoolers, as you well know, mom and teacher, and yet, so your child wants to tell you all sorts of different things all day long.
Yes.
And so there's that moment where you kind of have to give them that precious moment of mom's attention and go, that's really wonderful. Now, how does that have to do with Charlotte?
We have to do that in the classroom too.
Yes.
Where we give them that moment, but then we also have to know when, or have to use the discernment to know when to shut it down.
That's that, and to refocus.
Right.
Yes.
Well, it's good though, I think, for our homeschoolers to hear that you're doing the same thing.
Oh, yes.
It is all day refocus.
All you have to do is bring up, one state in geography, Colorado, and 10 hands go up. They all want to tell you about their trip to Colorado, or their dad's trip to Colorado, or their grandma's trip to Colorado.
And we want to give a little bit.
Yeah, we give a little bit, right?
Because they all can share. They all can share.
But we don't want to give so much that 20 minutes goes by and we're really off track.
Do you have any thoughts, Amy, about
I liked what Jessica said about the quietness. A classroom should be quiet, and whether it be at home or not. I mean, because it is so easily to be distracted. We all know that. I know when I do quizzes, or not quizzes, but tests in my classroom, I have classical music playing in the background just to give them that. It's not so deafening
really
quiet, but just sign of a background, just something nice for them to listen to and kind of
like the selection is important. Like I wouldn't do the 1812 overture.
No.
Listen to it ahead of time.
Yes. But just, having that aspect for them, and setting that expectation. And like you said, waiting your turn. It's like, especially if you're homeschooling multiple kids, it's like, they have to realize they can't just interrupt that, when you are dealing with one student, it's their time, and that their question can wait until,
which we deal with in the classroom too, all the time.
Yeah, raise your hand,
teaching kids this.
That's, know what, I love that you said that, because there have been days that I remember in homeschool when they were just not going well. There wasn't enough focus, and mom's temperature was rising, and everybody knew it, which means everybody's temperature rises. And I kind of said, okay, this is it. You're going to call me Mrs. McGraw now, because I'm like, I've had it. I am now totally teacher, and you will raise your hand when you want to speak. Now, I didn't have to do that all the time, but I can imagine that happens a whole lot more in the classroom. Obviously, they're not going to call you mom.
Right. Oh, they do sometimes. Yeah. It does slip out.
Yes, it does.
It does. And they are so embarrassed when it does.
It does, especially sixth graders. It's okay. Sixth graders. Oh, yes.
That's precious.
Well, they're with us so much. It's just.
They are.
That's awesome. I always say, well, I am a mom. It's okay.
I don't think I've ever cried laughing on an episode before. Oh, wow. But, really, there are days when I got to it. It was like, all right, that's it. I am now Mrs. McGraw. Like,
that's right. See, we become mom. So it goes both ways.
Awesome. And I think, so waiting your turn, that's a really difficult thing for, it doesn't always happen in the homeschool, but it can happen. And I think that's a good thing for parents to think about, because when you create that kind of expectation and order in your student, it just flows over into the order and peacefulness of your day. When you're keeping a child on focus, and maybe if they have to raise their hand to speak, that's okay.
Child,
right?
And it kind of helps them with order with their work too, as far as understanding how they should do their work neatly and completely. The orderly atmosphere just sets the tone for how the work is being done as well. So I know when all these interruptions are happening in class and I need to refocus everyone, and I'm walking around the room seeing how they're doing, I can tell the messiness in their study guide or in their math notebook was probably due to the interruptions that were going on at that time. So I think that they really are connected.
They can, they should be, and I bet they are. So there's something I was always really big about because, there's a lot of recitation in Memoria Press. There's a lot of recitation and memorization in classical schooling.
Right.
And so we would treat that with respect, and we would stand when we recited. What do you all do in the classrooms?
Oh, we stand next to our desks. Yes.
Okay.
We stand for Latin recitation. We stand for memory verse recitation. We stand for
Poetry.
Poetry. Yeah. When they, my class, when you were reciting a final poem, you go to the front of the class. And you have to bow or curtsy when you're done, so that way they're not running.
Oh, wow.
They're not running, because they'll say the last line as they're sitting back in their seat. But if they have to actually take a nice bow or do a nice curtsy, it has an ending to it that they need to finish. So,
and they're thinking through, I need to have this polished performance too.
You heard it here, folks. Bow and curtsy.
Bow and curtsy.
That's great, Amy. That's wonderful.
There you go.
I love it, but I do think that time to stand makes a big difference when you have to do some memory work, something that requires your respect in it and a different level of attention. It also shifts their attention, right? Yeah. So we've been sitting and we've been doing workbooks and writing and finishing things throughout the day, but it's time to do math flashcards. So we stood, right? Now I also made games.
Yeah, where we play games too.
They were They were standing and hopping some. Yes. Okay, but we did shift posture and shift our bodies, so that one, we're moving. There's a little bit of movement to the day. And I do want to say, I am a proponent of a student being a student. We've said this already, at a desk. At a table, and these things in progressive education where you have a reading corner with beanbags, and that has a place. But in the respect of our day, I'm all about posture.
Yeah, sure. So, and I always tell my students, when you walk into church, there's a certain attitude of reverence that you should have. When you go to a baseball game, you're going to have a different posture, a different attitude, and so what we're doing is important when we recite these poems or recite these Latin conjugations. And so our posture, our attitude, all of this is reflecting the import of what we're doing.
Oh, Jessica, I'm going to tell you, Amy and I have a vastly different posture and attitude at a baseball game, right?
Oh boy. I'd like to see that.
Our boys play baseball together.
Yes. And I think, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's so very important with the posture, because if you're slouched on a couch, you're telling your brain that this is not really important. This is just whatever I do all the time. Right. Whereas if you're sitting at a desk and you're at a table and you're holding your pencil right and your paper's right and things are set properly, it stresses that importance of what they really should be focusing on, and not just get this done type thing.
And with sixth grade, this is the last year they're going to have a teacher that is harping on them about that. So I tell them, if I harp on this a lot, it's because I am the last teacher that will probably ever tell you to hold your pencil properly. Right. They just don't have time. You're going to have various teachers for all your various subjects, and that's not going to be their focus. This is the focus of the grammar school, so you get it one last year from me.
Well, and then for a homeschooler, if they're looking at someone in sixth grade, when you hit that seventh grade, things really shift. Third grade is a huge shift. We all know that. But you hit seventh grade in a classical model of education, particularly Memoria Press, and the material is going to change vastly in your level of responsibility that you have to take on as a student, or should take on as a student. That changes vastly. And that does, every year. And then high school is upon them. before you blink and even know it. And then they're graduated and they're off and they're in college or they're gainfully employed.
Yes.
And,
when did this happen?
right, when did this all happen?
They're a member of society now fully.
Oh boy, okay. Again, I'm going to cry in the middle of the podcast. Okay.
Tears of joy.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Go and be free. Go.
Fly.
Well, ladies, thank you. Do you have any final thoughts of encouragement for our homeschoolers, our Memoria Press homeschoolers?
I would just say that each day is a new day to start afresh.
That's right.
I mean, you can, not have that day go great and just know that tomorrow we will start again.
Beautiful.
That's right.
We will start again.
And whether it's a classroom teacher or a homeschool
That's
teacher.
true.
It's
Amen.
the same thing.
Yes.
We're reading Anne of Green Gables, and she always says, every day is a new day with no mistakes in it. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that a lovely thought? So
how
we can think
beautiful.
that way too, because to err is human. We're going to make mistakes. We're not perfect. We have to give ourselves grace, just like we give our students grace, and regroup, re-strategize, and be
reach out
willing.
for help.
Right. That's right.
Reach out for help if needed.
that's right.
Absolutely. And, and when you regroup and you re-strategize, it may be at the end of a day. It may be at the end of a week. It could be at the end of a year, for a homeschooler. I mean, just reevaluating. And I would tell our homeschoolers, your own classroom is unique. And have grace and confidence in that you are developing a beautiful classroom experience for your homeschooler, whether you have 1, 2, 3, 5. God bless you. But give yourself grace, as Jessica has reminded us. Ladies, this was fun.
It was fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Maybe
you.
we have to go out for coffee.
All right. Or I need to go to a baseball game and see what we're talking about here.
See our attitude and posture.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Thank you for your time here today.
Thank you, Carrie.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. If you liked our episode, click the thumbs up button below or leave a comment to let us know what you thought. It always helps us to know if we've helped you. You can also click the bell icon and subscribe to the show so that you can stay in touch. Then I'd love for you to share it with a friend. We have many resources here on this channel, so I hope you'll check those out too. I'm Carrie McGraw. Thanks for listening today, and I'll see you next time.